The Dark Eye was a horror game for Windows and Mac developed by Inkscape and released in 1995. The stories are based on stories by Edgar Allan Poe and enacted by some creepy clay puppets. William Burroughs provides the voice for one of the characters, Edwin, as well as narrating Annabel Lee and the Mask of Red Death. Music is by Thomas Dolby and is also very memorable and sets the mood well. I found this for fairly cheap on eBay, considering it's gotten good reviews, yet is fairly obscure and from 24 years ago. I initially wondered how I could have missed it, seeing as I loved Poe, and that Burroughs was my favorite author when the game was released. Then I remembered that the IBM computer I had in 1995 could only display 16 colors and didn't have a CD-ROM drive. While waiting for the game to get here in the mail, I also ordered a copy of the strategy guide. I laughed about the fact that this was a game with a strategy guide, since you basically play the stories as written and don't make any real choices. Then I played the game, and I see why the guide would have been good to have during the first playthrough. This is why a lot of reviews say this is great as a weird, interactive movie, but kind of bad when it comes to the gameplay. Sometimes you just don't know what to do or what to click on. It's in first person with a point-and-click interface, but the cursor is a small hand. The hand can point in directions in which you can move, or you can pick up objects, open doors, and touch objects to interact. I was stuck in Berenice for a long time playing as Aegeus, just because I didn't know which objects I needed to touch and which order I needed to touch them in. There are sometimes few environmental clues telling you what to interact with, and you might need to complete a handwritten letter, touch a window, and then look at 4 different paintings. This can be tremendously frustrating, and I wouldn't be surprised if many people rage quit because of it. The game has a framing story, and then you experience more nightmarish sequences, which are the Poe stories. There are 3 stories in which you can play through as basically the narrator and the victim, separately. The Telltale Heart, Berenice, and the Cask of Amontillado. When you save after these, another segment on the phrenology chart will be filled in. In addition to these playable stories, you can also listen to Burroughs reading Annabel Lee and the Mask of Red Death while watching a slideshow sort of video. I found the character and level design to be great and evocative of the time period in which Poe's stories were set. The voice acting and music were also good. The biggest problems would be the lack of environmental cues telling you what to do, which can be frustrating, and the fact that it helps to know the source material. If I could wave a magic wand to change the gameplay, I might make some of the interactions with the environment optional, rather than required to progress, or highlight them in some way. You can also accidentally end up in a segment that you've already played, but you can soul jump from one character to the other by clicking on their eyes in certain locations, which is helpful if you know about it, but it can be confusing if you don't know how that works. Overall, a charming, obscure horror game, but one that can be highly frustrating. I would recommend having a walkthrough or a guide handy your first playthrough, because you may need it through no real fault of your own. Worthwhile for the atmosphere, for Burroughs, and for the creepy puppet sequences. You will probably need an emulator unless you have a working computer from 1995 also.